being able to interact with people that, hey, I flew an Eagle back in 1970, or I met such and such, and I got to see Bob Hoover, Sean Tucker, Art Scholl, and that's really what keeps it going. It puts a smile on my face to be able to share this deep-rooted passion of aviation with others.
Welcome to the Future in Flight podcast, coming to you from a hangar somewhere near the flight line. I'm your host, Shawn Staerker. If you've ever stood on the ramp at an air show, heart pounding as a jet screams overhead, you know there's magic in these moments. But have you ever wondered about the people who make that magic happen? The crew chiefs, the ramp bosses, the operations managers working behind the scenes. In today's long-form conversation, we're talking with Jeremy Meyers, a United States Air Force tech sergeant with nearly 2 decades of military service, founder of Breaks Off Media, and operations manager for the NextGen Eagles Aerobatic Team. Jeremy has been to over 140 air shows across multiple countries, and he's here to pull back the curtain on what really makes the air show world tick. From his first air show as a 5-year-old in Spokane to having lunch with Chuck Yeager, from maintaining F-15s and F-16s to mentoring the next generation of aviation professionals, Jeremy brings a perspective you won't hear anywhere else. We'll talk about the future of air shows, mental health and aviation, and why he believes this industry is about so much more than just aircraft. So grab your headset, let's go full throttle right into this conversation. So you have been to just an incredible amount of air shows. I mean, I've read somewhere, some number put it at something like 140 air shows across a number of countries. What drew you to the air show world in the first place?
Well, I'm originally from Spokane, Washington, so I think, pay homage to Phelps Field in Fairchild, which is really the birthplace of my love of aviation and the air show industry. And it was my dad who took me at 5 years old, and I remember seeing the Thunderbirds. I remember seeing an E-2 Hawkeye, the likes of the B-52, which was still at Fairchild at the time up until 94. So that would have been starting out around 1990. So early 90s was really kind of the precipice of the start of the love of aviation. And I just fell in love. I don't think I've looked down, Shawn.
I love it. Full throttle, man. It just heels to the floor and going. So over that time, You have had to accumulate a number of memories. Tell me about one of the most standout memories of an air show that you've ever attended.
Oh, gosh. That's a gregreat question. There are a lot, like flying with the Golden Knights. But I think one thing I was thinking about today and just if it was going to come up or kind of memories is, because really to me it's what air shows are all about, right? In 2009, as an airman, I got the opportunity to travel to Beale Air Force Base in Marysville, California, and I was a part of the Viper West demo team. Now, I wasn't an actual team member, but I got to go as a part of the team. So the military paid my way to go to Beale and basically hang out with the Viper West team for 4 days, which was super horrible as a senior airman, E3, just kind of hanging out and getting to see all the behind-the-scenes stuff, performer status, and all of that. But the thing that sticks out was I went to go get my lunch, and I sat down at the table. And as I sat down at the table, a gentleman sat across from me, and he began asking me questions about the F-16 Block 40 and 42s that we flew at Hill at the time. And I thought, what in the world is retired General Chuck Yeager asking Senior Airman Meyers about the F-16? And I got to have lunch with Chuck Yeager. And boy, that still to this day is kind of one of those special moments in all of my airshow travels.
Yeah, I was going to have to back you up on that. I thought you were going to bury the lead. No kidding. The General. What an incredible opportunity. I mean, that guy is legendary, of course, but what was that moment like, just meeting the General? What's that goes through your mind, especially as an E3?
Yeah, very young in my career at the time. I'd only been in for about 3 years. And I know we're going to talk about it later, so I don't want to take too much time. But it was really a huge honor. I mean, in 6th grade, I remember I did a book report on this guy as part of, somebody that you just look up to in the aviation community. And for him to sit down at the table and want to talk to me and be able to interact with somebody of that stature in aviation was kind of a once-in-a-lifetime moment, obviously, right? And it's so pivotal and inspiring to be able to sit underneath and conversate, not for like 2 seconds, like a lot of times is with other leaders, dignitaries, and things like that. But I mean, we probably talked 20, 25 minutes about the military and aviation. And it's hard to walk away from that moment without feeling proud as an American and as somebody that goes, man, that's pretty cool.
That is really, really cool. And pretty awesome story right there. So you've worked with a number of national teams and countless times more civilian performers. What have you learned from working with such a diverse range of talent?
Well, it's a huge honor to be in the place that I am. The other day I counted, I'm up to just over 10 different civilian performers that I've worked with in some sort of capacity, be it media maintenance or the like, even, being like the liaison at a base and welcoming to the base and making sure that they're all good at different air shows I've been involved with. And the talent is just unreal. These guys and gals love what they do, and really being able to see the behind the scenes of, they're always thinking of how to better themselves. They're having conversations about days and performers of long past and funny ideas of what we could do. And there's a lot that can be learned from what we don't see as far as the work that they put in on a weekend basis at a particular show site. A lot of people may see they fly for 8 minutes and sure, they might be dizzy or sweaty because it's hot outside, and they drink a bottle of water and they come and they greet you and they take the photos in the social media. But there's a whole lot more into making sure the airplanes are good, making sure that the smoke oil is there, that they're personifying the image and the mission that they both have individually and as ICAS as a whole. And so it's been really neat to kind of see that behind the scenes look into real people that, like me, just love their craft and love what they get to do.
I love it. And that shows that you love what you do. So we talked a little bit about having seen some air shows in different countries. How do they differ overseas? Is there some difference that's notable, or are they kind of all the same?
No. There's a huge difference. Obviously, safety is non-negotiable, right? That's not something that we would wager against. But when you go to the likes of, I think of RAF Waddington specifically, and the Royal International Air Tattoo at RAF Fairford, widely known as the largest military air show in the world, which I can attest to, you are only maybe 1,500 feet from the runway. And so the crowd line is still, well, the crowd line is much closer to the runway, but the flying happens then beyond the runway. And so when you get big airplanes like the B-52, I saw the brand new A400M Atlas in 2010, like 9 months after it had first flown. That thing, it just feels like it's taking off over you. The likes of the Royal New Zealand 757 transport airplane taking off, and you're just like right there. And so, of course, it's a spotter's dream or an aviation's enthusiast's dream. So that's one difference. Over in Europe, there are some shows that feature it, but I would say widely it's more military stuff. So if there's a piston-driven aircraft, it's a Spitfire or a Hurricane. You don't get a lot of the Pitzes and the extras. There are some, but like I said, large in a way. It's warbirds on up to modern fighters. And, we here in the States, we think back to 2004, mid-2000s, when you'd have the F-14 and the F-15 and the F-16 and the A-10 demo teams all at the same air show, and the Blue Angels. In Europe, it would be the Red Arrows, the Italian Frecce Tricolori, the Patrouille de France, the Patrouille Suisse, the Breitling Jet team, and even maybe the Korean team, in addition to all the other stuff. So it's just wildly more military focused, and it's pretty incredible and awesome. But there is a difference to just the construct of the airshow dynamic.
I didn't know that there wasn't a huge piston airshow presence in Europe, so interesting to hear that.
Do you deal like the Royal Jordan Falcons? There are some. That's probably the most widely known extras in Europe because they come to Europe every summer. They do a tour with their four extra 3Ls or whatever. But other than that, it's all jets.
So what does a ramp boss actually do during the show? And tell us why that role is so important.
Well, it's extremely important because you are kind of the marshaller. You're the guy that's on the ground, and you're making sure that everybody is in the right spot at the right time. Sometimes you get the privilege of being on comms with the air boss the entire time, so you're listening to the air boss talk to the pilots, and the pilots talk back, and so you're the liaison between what's happening in the air and what's happening on the ground, and making sure that everybody's time on target takeoff time is met, and then equally so that those pilots have a bottle of water. And I make it a point to try and figure out how to make sure that the smoke in the oil truck is ready before that propeller stops turning when they come and land. Because the quicker we can turn that aircraft, whether they're going to fly a second time or not, the quicker that pilot can go interact with the crowd and those young kids and the veterans and the old timers that have been at that air show for years and years. And it just flows everything smoother. The moment that an air show is waiting on somebody to come out or start their engine, you're going to feel the ripple effect of that. And so the ramp boss is kind of the choreograph on the ground, where the air boss is the choreographer of the sky. And they work hand in hand together, communicating any issues, any delays, hey, we got to skip this guy because he's having an alternator issue, which they wouldn't necessarily say over the comms, but that allows us the time to kind of, in the moment, skip to the next performer and then go circle back to the one if available, and keep everything moving so that there's always aircraft in the sky or somebody coming down on a parachute for the crowd to see.
Really important role. So let's switch to kind of another hat that you wear at air shows. You've done photography, you published air show reviews. What are you trying to capture or communicate through your coverage?
Great question, Shawn. Every single time I write a review, every single time I'm posting a picture or a video, to me it's a story of aviation. That's a snapshot in time or a reel in time. But what it allows is for that person that may like that airplane or like that photo with something happening behind it or whatever the case may be, a certain maneuver where you can see all of the flight controls of an aircraft in all sorts of different ways, and you get a sense of understanding of what's going on as they snap through the air. What we see, the twists and the tumbles, there's a lot more to it, as aviation buffs out there will know. And so really it's sharing a love of aviation through the lens of capturing a specific moment in time. And so I don't go out and take 11,000 photos. Some people do that. They, kind of spray shoot, or they just kind of go and hope they get something. And they're very good at it. Each individual is a different craft. But for me, it's a very targeted, I want to get that moment, because how cool would it be to get, like for this, I haven't posted it yet, but this weekend at Kirkland in New Mexico, they had a UH-1 Iroquois sat next to an HH-60W Pavehawk 2, sat next to a CV-22 Osprey. And I took a photo of all three of the tails. Because
the
to me,
picture.
like that's, yeah, like, and this year specifically, as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the end of Vietnam and the role of the helicopter in all DoD wide, I was just, that's a moment I got to capture. I want to tell that story, because they position them in a way that you could do that. And so it's very intentional in trying to elicit that same passion and inspiration and appreciation of aviation through my lens.
I love it. And you're doing a heck of a job at it. In all of that, through the lens and then through your coverage, what trends or changes have you seen in the airshow industry over the past couple decades?
Well, with the stand-down military teams, we just, I think 2 weeks ago in the past month, really give or take, I think I might have missed something because I've recently been on assignment overseas. The PACAV F-16 demo team stood down, actually. So they flew their final ever demo. And so there's a lot of these single ship teams that are going away. And you're getting F-35 flybys, and a lot more F-35s are showing up to air shows than the A-10s, F-16s, F-A-18s, S-3s, F-117. Go back to those days at air shows. So that's a particular change. The onboarding of the KC-135 demo teams and the newly assigned KC-46 Pegasus demo team, that's kind of new, where normally that would be a flyby. We are now actually having heavy demo teams. And I think we have like 5 C-17 demo teams that do a great job of showcasing air mobility around the globe. And then they can duel as like the parachute team or whatever, jump platform. So that's a major change. Photography even has changed, right? Like just looking at the media aspect of it, the reels, and just getting a quick 10-second clip of Aaron Deleu snapping or rolling around a Golden Knight airplane or whatever, or the NextGen Eagles, or Melissa Burns, is it, in her Edge 540, and Skip Stewart, and you just get these little quick 3-second TikTok type videos where it's no longer this long drawn out 5-page review with 400 photos. It's kind of get in and get out, grab your attention and move on. And then you got to pick the right music, which music has also changed. and you still get those old timers that don't like music with airplanes and those that think that it's needed. And so, it's just there's a lot of ebb and flow to how it goes. But air shows have definitely changed in the last 30 years. Some for the good, some growing pains as we're trying to figure out how to best capture the imagination and also inspire people to pursue careers in all the different facets of aviation.
Let's talk about one of the ways that air shows do that, and that is through the STEM or STEAM education. Talk a little bit about how STEM or STEAM is incorporated into air shows and how they contribute.
Yeah, that's awesome. Firm believer in STEAM and STEM events. I think it's a great interjection. A lot of military bases we'll see on the Friday. We'll kind of highlight that for those that have access to base, and then it's kind of a follow-on throughout the weekend of the air show or week. And STEM, I would say, plays a huge role from having the likes of, there was a big, like a car that they would use on the salt flats. I saw one time in England, all the way to the likes of Barksdale, McConnell, and Altus Air Force Base have really done STEM really well. And what I mean by that is they'll have a local nature center bring in some turtles and some snakes and some animals for the kids to pet. There'll be a local animal shelter that will have some dogs for people to pet. You'll have a robotics team. You'll have some people that are just doing some silly bubble science experiments in the hangar. And then what that does is it provides, one, a shaded area for kids that might not be as interested in the air show as everybody else in their party. And with the colleges and the technical schools and then the local areas that are able to come in and kind of showcase how they provide certain things within the STEAM realm to their community, it shows the partnership of the DoD with the community. And I think that's largely important because air shows wouldn't happen without that backing of the community as well as they do. But it also says that the DoD recognizes, hey, it's not just about recruitment. That is a big piece of what we do in air shows, but it's also very much so aimed at, hey, there's a world out there for you to go explore, and you need to find your niche and go out there and find a dream and pursue it.
So let's say we've got a young listener out there who kind of, they've taken that advice to heart. They think that they want to get into the air show industry, whatever that looks like, whatever facet that would be to them. Talk to them generally and give them a little bit of advice about getting into the air show industry as a whole.
It's a lot of hard work and determination. Get ready to pour in the work that is needed to get there. But I think that the greatest piece of advice, and one that I continually go back to myself, is getting mentors. We need to have people in our life that we can go to outside of that entity that we're trying to pursue within the air show industry, and be able to be frank and honest and open with them and say, hey, I got frustrated this weekend because I felt like such and such or so-and-so wasn't listening to me, and this is how I responded. And to be able to get that real-time feedback of developing emotional intelligence and developing the ability to clearly communicate is critical in being able to be in the air show world when, as we've mentioned before, things are very volatile sometimes in the fact of, if you're very set on A to Z and we go A, J, B, U, D, you have to be able to know where we're at in the grand scheme of things and be able to pivot from that and continue on and represent whatever it is that you're trying to do professionally. And it's okay to have emotion. It's okay to feel a certain way about something, but how we respond in that moment is so critical in our ability to then build, I think, that professional image to the industry, because people are watching, people are listening, people know who people are and their tags and things like that. And so that's one thing in the mentorship. And have fun. I mean, this weekend I went to New Mexico, and it was for purely, like, it may sound selfish, but it was a means to just go enjoy an air show. I didn't have any obligation. I didn't have any role to play. And yet I walked away having helped about 5 to 7 people that was their first time air show. And for whatever reason, they just asked me a question. I was able to give them life, speak life into their dream or their just attending the air show. And they walked away much relieved. They walked away excited. They walked away, I'm going to go ask the pilot that question. Like, yeah, you go do that. And that is critical also, because in any job, in any dream, sometimes the grind can get to us and it becomes a burden. And it never should be, because there's such an opportunity in aviation to inspire the next generation or to honor that veteran that I think we have to be clear of mind, communicate well, and be able to. to, 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 figuratively and relatively as far as the weather.
I love it. I love that you get to air shows and just still go and don't do anything. That's really refreshing, because you are so busy, whether it's through your job or whether it's through your startup Breaks Off Media. Now, what inspired you to launch Breaks Off Media, and where'd you get the name?
So I'm a huge Blue Angel fan, and don't tell my Air Force leadership, but a lot of times you'll hear a demo team will say something like, brakes off, ready now, burners ready now, smoke on, ready now, here we go, or some variation of that. And so really Breaks Off Media was, I'm here to kind of bring that full throttle. Here, full steam ahead, let's find ways to carry air shows on for the next 30, 40 years, even beyond the time that I would attend air shows. And so Breaks Off Media is here to cultivate, recruit, and revitalize the airshow industry at large, whether that's a performer, a planner, whatever the case may be, an attendee, a spectator that's been in an airshow for 80 years or their first time. The start of it was, as I'm approaching the end of my military career, I wanted to figure out a way to start networking and see if there was a viable way to perhaps full-time step into air shows as the means of income when I leave the Air Force. And so it just kind of was, let's see where it goes, and been very privileged and humbled to have opportunities and that continue to grow through this year and since we started it, and we'll see where it goes.
In your opinion, what makes an air show really successful?
Boy, an air show that is really successful is one that people walk away going, I can't wait for the next one. If you can get a majority of people that walk away that not only were inspired by the aviation events, but they meant, wow, there was a story on the ground, in the air, all around me, not overwhelming, but just to the point that they walk away with a memory and they go, a positive memory of, that was really cool. I can't wait to go back or see what they bring next year on the ground or in the air, or a night show or whatever the case may be. If you leave people hungry for more, I think you've succeeded.
Where do you see yourself and Breaks Off Media in the industry 5 years from now? What's your vision?
My vision is to be a consultant at large for likely specifically DoD air shows. So taking all of the notes from spending 35 years on both sides of the fence at all these locations and countries and infusing life back into the industry in ways that I see opportunity for growth and refinement.
Let's take a quick break and talk about one of our great show partners. This episode of the Future in Flight podcast is brought to you by Aviation Magazine, the official youth aviation publication inspiring the next generation of aviation professionals. From student pilots to A&P mechanics, airport managers to aerospace engineers, Aviation highlights the incredible journeys of those shaping aviation's future. Through their Rising Star program and the American Dream Tour, Aviation connects students with industry leaders, bringing real stories and career pathways directly to high schools and organizations across America. Ready to discover your place in aviation? Visit avnationusa.com to learn more. Let's talk about one of the ways that you're doing that specifically with the NextGen Eagles. Now, as the operations manager for the NextGen Eagles, tell us a little bit about the team. What are they all about?
We are all about lots of smoke and beautiful colors. Our beautiful Crescent Eagle biplanes pop in the blue sky and the white sky in the golden hour specifically. And we get to showcase an iconic aircraft in aviation that has brought home awards in the air show in the aerobatic competition world, and we get to go out and really demonstrate some close formation aerobatics, and it's really kind of like a ballet intermixed with some high energy opposing passes, but really about the teamwork that it takes to go fly an air show.
Talk to us a little bit about getting the team ready for a performance. What goes into that?
It depends on when we start our day. And typically they'll be for the boss. But no, so we get out to the show site, and my role as the operations manager is kind of ever evolving as we continue to evolve as a team, which is really fun. But a lot of my role is getting out, making sure the aircraft are good to go, that we know where we're going to go park. If we've hangared the aircraft overnight, we know where we're taking the airplanes back to. Sometimes just based on things that happen, there might be a top up of smoke or fuel that needs to happen. I oftentimes am given a good wax on, wax off, wipe down on their visors, making sure that the shoes The flight shoes are in the cockpit, and then I do a once over the aircraft. So while I don't have my A&P, and I'm kind of limited on some aspects, I do have 18 plus years of being an aircraft maintainer. And so I just kind of in my own way look at things and have learned kind of some of the key details of the Eagle and make sure that I'm okay with the airplane, that I don't see anything that needs addressing from somebody that would have that qualification. And then that we make the brief on time, that we know what our frequencies are, that we know how much gas we're putting in if we're doing a teaser act and then we're flying later. Hey, what are we going to do? Just so that we're ready for the day. Because really the airplanes are mine on the ground. And then they do Tom and Leland do the rest of the flying. And then it's kind of rinse, repeat throughout the weekend. And then anything else that happens. If people are going to come do a tour, if we're going to have a media ride, I've been known to brief the media writer, which doesn't happen a lot, but it has happened. I'll brief the news people, kind of introduce Leland and the team to them, and kind of in a warm handoff to the pilots to really give them the break that they need to be in the mental space to go do what they do so well, and that's go fly a wonderful air show.
And boy, do they. It is a phenomenal show. I am stoked to see him at Oshkosh coming up this year. Big deal. And it just, if anybody has any, if they're around, I mean, you have to see him. The music is original. The act is phenomenal. It is, you're right, it's a great ballet with some really intense passes and just a unique show. Really credit to you guys for how far you have come and really just setting the bar high for that team.
We appreciate the support and we love what we do and can't wait to go see all the people at all the sites that we get to go to this year and are very much so looking forward to bringing the Eagle back to Oshkosh. It's a huge honor and we cannot wait to bring it home and showcase what we do best.
I know Leslie Poborozny is looking forward to that.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about that experience that you've had as a maintainer. I mean, you've had 19 plus years of experience in the Air Force, and you've had multiple roles. Talk a little bit about that journey and moving through the progression as an airman and an E6.
So I started in 2006 at Hill Air Force Base in the 34th Fighter Squadron, Root Rams, and we deployed to Balad, Iraq, and that tenure of time with the Root Rams. I also went to Pakistan and I went to the United Arab Emirates. So some of my early on travel of the world was with my very first unit. If I remember correctly, we were one of the first units to also live fire one of our newer missiles back in the day. And I was on that TDY and a part of that and remember watching the cameras from the support aircraft and at the base that we were at, Tyndall, and watching that missile go off the rail. So that was pretty cool. Just as a maintainer, a lot of pride. And I'll tell you real quick, one of my key moments in being a maintainer, because I get asked that question a lot as my instructor duty, which I'm sure we'll highlight. When did I figure out that I had arrived as being a crew chief? And you might think it was the 2 rides that I got in the F-16, or the time I launched an F-15 Eagle to go chase down an adversary aircraft that had broken into Icelandic airspace, things that we watched as a kid on Discovery Wings and whatnot. I was really doing that. And it wasn't that moment. It was in Iraq when I had launched out a pilot and he came back some 6.5, almost 8 hours later and just had a melancholy look on his face. And I remember thinking that he had not reported anything wrong with the aircraft. And there was only less than 500 pounds of gas on the airplane, which meant that it was on fumes. But there was no discrepancies. And I was perplexed and just did my job and got him some water. And about a week later, he invited me to come to the ops building and he showed me a video, Shawn. And that video was from his mission on that day. He was circling overhead because there was a convoy that was going from point A to point B. And in the middle of it, they tragically were hit by some IEDs, or an improvised explosive device. And my pilot chose to stay on station and circle overhead until the coalition forces were able to come and recover those that needed to be recovered and to rescue those that needed rescuing. And the realization, Shawn, was that I was the crew chief that did my job according to tech data that allowed that pilot to make that decision to stay on station so long that he had mere seconds of deciding if he was going to come back to base or run that airplane out of gas. So if just that realization of how important my job is to empower that pilot to go employ the aircraft for the mission set that it's designed for, man, that's a heavy weight, but that's also a huge honor. that I get to, that's my job. That's my role in making sure that those, each and every airplane, whether it's an Eagle or an F-15 Eagle, an F-16, whatever the case may be, that pilot can go do its mission in the manner that they need to.
It really is a team mission. I mean, there's no single individual. Just because the guy is at the control, he's a rocket jockey. I mean, you have to look deeper. There's a bassist, there's a drummer, there's a key light guy. I mean, there's a team that's making this thing happen. Let's dive a little bit deep with this question and tell me how you foster mentorship and development within your current military instructional roles.
So, would you believe it goes back to an air show? I was 9 years old. I'll have to send you the link later. I was 9 years old, and my dad took me to Yakima, Washington to go see the Blue Angels for the first time. And I remember that very, very distinctly. And at that air show, the Viper West demo team was there, and at the time, the pilot was Captain Kurt Huevos Gallegos, Huevos being his call sign. And I remember that was the spark of wanting to be in the military, wanting to work on the F-16, wanting to take the F-16 to air shows and the whole 9 yards. I was hook, line, sinker, sold at 9 years old back in 96. Well, fast forward to 2007, and I was at Hill Air Force Base, and I was working with a counterpart of mine that happened to be in the reserve guard, or the reserve unit, the 419th Diamondbacks. And I told him this story, and he started kind of chuckling at me. And I was like, yeah, I know I'm kind of a weirdo, I'm just really into this. Like, I'm very passionate about it all. And they said, that's not why I'm laughing. Well, then why are you laughing? And he goes, well, because Lieutenant Colonel Huevos is my commander. And I kind of skipped a beat, I think, and was perplexed and excited. And that led to me meeting him for the first time a week later. And then about a month later, I actually got to be his crew chief for a day. And so I launched him out on a local sortie out of Hill Air Force Base. And as an A1C and whatever that is, I was really young in my career, not even a year into it really. Man, that was cool. And from that fostered a mentorship relationship to where to this day I could reach out to now retired Colonel Huevos and say, hey, I need to, I call it word vomit. I need to word vomit about the military. And I need to be brought back to center. And I have chiefs and I have people outside of my chain of command that I can go to and do that word vomit as a figure of speech of just being able to kind of unload and be asked some tough questions or to be told some tough realizations to be able to recenter myself and to move on. And out of that, I would say too, Shawn, that's kind of what drove the Angle of Attack series that I've done on my Breaks Off Media page, and that's driven the Check 6 thing. Because if those that have been following it may have noticed that every time I ask, what words of wisdom would you give those facing challenges in life? Because I don't know who, Josh Schulten's a hero to elsewhere in the airshow industry. And so that's my way of presenting that opportunity of mentorship or seeing these, one, as we talked about, these people are people, but two, they have some wisdom. They have some storied past behind them that we can learn from and glean from in their successes, and maybe even in some of those things that they've had to readjust in their own life as we pursue whatever it is that we're pursuing. And so I'm an advocate for it, and I'm also somebody that goes out and continues to have those people in my life so that I know that I can be centered when I need it.
Yeah, the 06 has a way of bringing some really centering information. We're likely going to land a little bit long, but I've got about 3 to 4 questions I'd really like to get in. Do you have a couple extra minutes?
I absolutely do.
Thanks. Yeah, these are there's one in here that really is important, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to bring it back to the jets, and you've worked on both the F-15 and the F-16. How do those aircraft compare or differ from a maintenance or crew chief's perspective?
In trying to give a brief answer, the F-15, I worked on the C model, so I was a part of the 493rd Grim Reapers out at RAF Lake and Heath, and our role was air superiority. Really, this is as the F-22 was coming online, and it is a bode to the past of NATO, and so we do a lot of exercises with our NATO counterparts and be kind of the red air to teach them better tactics and things of that nature. So the F-15C, which is what I worked on again, is strictly air-to-air. We've never really attached a bomb to it. Yes, it shot a satellite out of the sky, but that's air-to-air is its mission set. Whereas the F-16 is a very tried and true multi-role fighter. I've seen anything from rockets, AGM-65 Mavericks, small diameter bombs, larger 2,000-pound GBUs, depending on our location, and an array of missiles and different ordnance, and even its targeting system and being used in what we would call joint operations within the military. And so when I say multi-role, it can do both air-to-air and air-to-ground, sometimes in the same mission if needed, where the F-15 was strictly, we're going to get bad guys out of the sky.
Fantastic. That's a nice, good, succinct answer. And thank you for not saying one has two engines, the other one doesn't. So that would have been really quick.
Yeah.
So what's it like to transition from being a maintainer to a crew chief and then into instructing?
You're taking all of your, I call it a Rolodex of stories, right? I get to, I think it was 4,200 hours teaching airmen across 21 different airframes in the Air Force. And I mean, just incredible opportunities to see the light bulb go off in a number of ways. My favorite way was, because everybody has like flight radar and flight aware or whatever. I had a new group of KC-46 Pegasus students that had never seen their airplane. And I happened to be looking one day early on in the class, and there were two at a specific altitude that typically indicates that they would be doing some sort of air-to-air AAR refueling mission. And so I gathered up my class, my tribe, and we quickly went downstairs, and I was able to locate them at the altitude that it was said. And for those 8 airmen, the very first time that they ever saw their airplane was literally doing its mission. And so my love of aviation and air shows and military aircraft, being able to infuse that, not to create copycats, but to say, look, taking pride and ownership in what you get to go do and whatever your craft is largely freeing. And it also opens up a world of doors because people see that and people are drawn to that.
I love that. That is absolutely a fantastic answer, as have many of yours been. Thank you so much for getting deep. I want to address something that is becoming more of a topic, but until this point, and even now, it is really a sort of a taboo subject, and that is the mental health in aviation. As somebody who is pursuing a career or a degree in a master's in mental health counseling, tell me a little bit about your thoughts on mental health in aviation.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, I think there's various ways, a lot of ways that it presents itself. I think for me, early on, part of the reason of following on my theology degree with mental health was kind of the faith aspect, which is a large part of my own personal value foundation. But really the fact of, these airshow guys and grunts, they're traveling so long in a given year of an airshow season, upwards of 180 to almost 300 days, depending on the different facets that they handle. And, I just got to thinking, like, what is the aviation airshow world doing for these folks that, may be mentally tired? And it doesn't mean that they can't do their job or that they're not fit to fly the air show, but maybe there's something going on at home that we could step in and assist with if we only knew what was going on. Or maybe there's an element of, dad, mom doesn't understand me. I don't understand mom, dad. They do the same flip-de-loops every single day. They're not here for this, that, and the other thing. And whether that's, from my own childhood and my dad that traveled for JCPenney for, from Alaska to Nebraska for, a lot of weekends, or just the element of being gone from my own family in the military. The spark was, we need to find a way to be able to speak life and invigorate these people that are given so much to our industry. And what does that look like in a manner that is inviting and allows that space for somebody to actually say, hey, you know what? I have a hurdle in front of me and I need some help. I need somebody to step in and center me appropriately so that my mind is set and my family is set and things are where they need to be when the going gets tough. And that even goes to, I would say, the volunteer, the director, the massive team of people that shed so many tears and sweat making sure that the airshow goes seamless for the general public that come out, and the challenges that they face on a given airshow weekend. And what are we doing to make sure that they are also taken care of in that mental health aspect so that they feel like they are empowered, that they're equipped, and that they can say no or yes when they need to, and be supported by the other team with, again, that very succinct communication.
Let's talk a little bit about a statement that you have. It's a position, a place that you work. It is sort of a life statement in a greater sense. Tell us what Under His Wing means to you, and how does it guide your work and your life?
So the Blue Angels fly pretty close together. We all know 18 inches apart. And there's some documentary out there. There's loads of documentaries, which, by the way, go see the new Netflix on the Thunderbirds and the Prime Video of the Blue Angels if you haven't, or go watch it again because they're just great, phenomenal pieces. But there was a documentary years back, and I remember that one of the Blue Angel pilots said, at 18 inches apart, there are some times that, based on the sun angle, I can't see where boss is. And yet they are listening to boss's voice, pulling through each and every maneuver. And again, from a faith aspect, I thought, man, isn't that the truth of the higher being, be it, whatever it is for all of the listeners out there, for me, the Lord. And sometimes in life, when you feel the G-forces pulling, where am I looking? Am I looking at the guy next to me? Am I looking at my own heads-up display and what tells me my airspeed, my altitude, what direction I'm headed in life, and the direction that I think I want to be going? Or am I truly focused and fixed, attuned to and responsive to somebody else's voice that is known to not lead me into the ground? And so under his wing is that reminder of, hey, where am I looking?
Love it. Absolutely love it. What keeps you motivated after nearly 2 decades of military service and hundreds of air shows?
The people. Being able to interact with people that, hey, I flew an Eagle back in 1970, or I met such and such, and I got to see Bob Hoover, Sean Tucker, Art Scholl. I saw the Blue Angels in the F4, the A4, the Thunderbirds in the F-105. I was there when they unveiled the F-117. Check out this cool reel that I just got, or this photo that I just got of the NextGen Eagles. I have people that send me photos all the time of the team, which is great. We love it. And that's really what keeps it going. It puts a smile on my face to be able to share this deep-rooted passion of aviation with others. And not just my story, but their story. And infusing that life, as I've said, into what they're doing in their craft. Because it's going to go well beyond me, and I'm just a cog in the wheel of something that has inspired generations.
If you could give your 18-year-old self one piece of advice, what would that be?
What I tell my classes: don't let anybody ever tell you that you're less than because you strive to be more, nor that you should do more so that they can be less. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you're less than because you strive to be more, or that you should do more so that they can be less. The point being, carry your weight, know your value, and go after it. Don't let people tell you no for the sake of saying no.
That's a great question to end the really heavy stuff. Let's get into the 3 fun ones, man. Let's shed all of this gear, this useful load, and go into some 3 fun questions. Are you up for it?
I'm up.
Let's go. As somebody who's been to a lot of air shows, you've got some time in the air. Tell us about one of your favorite either air show snacks or in-flight snacks.
In-flight snacks? Well, I'd be remiss to say donuts, because last year I was flying in the Eagle.
Nice.
And Tom had gone to the store and got some donuts, and Leland had given me a Belvita, because that's kind of our snack or whatever, and which I liked, right? It's good fiber, and it keeps you awake and whatnot. But all of a sudden, Leland looked back and saw that Tom was eating a donut, because I was actually flying the airplane at the time. The airplane, and I was like, it did smell like Hostess in here. And so that kind of is the joke now is donuts in the morning. Yeah, we like to dog on each other a little bit.
As any proper team should.
Yeah.
So we've got the donuts. If you could fly anything throughout history, what would you fly?
Hawker Hunter.
Whoa, it didn't take you any time at all.
No. A beautiful airplane. Love the noise, the blue note. They say it's the Cadillac of the skies. It presents beautifully. Again, it's another one of those airshow history aircraft, having been flown by the Treble 1 Squadron in the Black Arrows in England. And then they were the lead for the 22 Hunter formation loop at the Farnborough Air Show, if you haven't seen that photo. So, yeah, Hawker Hunter.
Well, that's a great answer. First one, and unique. So I love that I'm getting unique answers. First donut answer, by the way. Now, if you could fly with anybody throughout history, who would that be?
There's a lot of people. But I think it would probably be the person that I also would want to have lunch with when that question comes up. And that is a gentleman by the name of Guy Gibson. Are you familiar with that name?
I'm not. No, negative.
So he was 24 years old, and he was the lead pilot in command of the famous operation for the Dam Buster raid. So the Lancaster bombers that had the bouncing bomb and went into the heart of mainland Europe to go try and decimate the adversary's industrial capability. At just 24 years old, he led the mass of Lancaster bombers. And I think anybody that has that amount of tenacity at 24 and can lead as well as they did in a successful mission, I think we have a lot to learn from him. So I think it would be really fun to go flying with him.
It would be a heck of a flight. bringing the donuts along, making sure you keep the calories up, and just getting all the info you can. These are great answers. Jeremy, everything has been absolutely phenomenal, man. I really thank you for bringing the heat.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. Somebody was asking me if I was excited, and I said, of course I'm excited. It's humbling and a privilege to be featured, but also to be able to turn around and I see it as a two-way streak as the Future in Flight podcast is growing. I'm just honored to be a part of the own spark and where you're going with that. So love it.
Well, it's really a mutual honor, so I thank you for the kind words. I appreciate the heck out of that, and you're doing some fantastic stuff yourself out there, good sir. I love it. I'm definitely a fan, no doubt.
Thanks very much, and I think I'd be remiss to not say, y'all have a great afternoon, and we will see you on the ramp when we go. Smoke on.
There it is right there. We've been 54 minutes, 33 seconds, and that was the money right there. And there you have it. A conversation that took us from the flight line to the classroom, from maintenance bays to mental health and everywhere in between. Jeremy, thank you for bringing the heat today. Your passion for aviation, your commitment to mentorship, and your vision for revitalizing the airshow industry through Breaks Off Media, it all comes through loud and clear. To everyone listening, if you want to follow Jeremy's work, check out Breaks Off Media and keep an eye out for the NextGen Eagles at an air show near you. And trust me, you definitely won't want to miss that performance. Before we shut it down for today, I want to thank our partner Aviation for helping us make this show possible. Their support allows us to bring you these conversations with people who are shaping the future of flight. And speaking of support, if you enjoyed this episode, we'd be incredibly grateful if you'd leave us a review. Whether you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts, your reviews help other aviation enthusiasts find these conversations. It takes just a minute, but it makes a real difference. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon. Stay curious about the people and stories that make aviation incredible. And remember, whether you're on the ramp or in the cockpit, we're all part of the same team. This has been the Future in Flight podcast. I'm Shawn Staerker. We'll see you out there and up there.